For Bharat FM and Bharat TV.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate taking the time.
It's a pleasure to have you. Yeah.
Talk today. Yeah.
I want to begin on a note of levity. You are a Six Sigma Master Black Belt recipient. How does that help in the current politically volatile climate?
Well, I think it's something from my perspective. It brings someone who understands processes and how to lean out waste and inefficiency within that process, as that is what a black belt, Six Sigma black belt does. It goes look at data and comes up with what factors that you can control in order to improve a better outcome. And from that standpoint, I've been able to do that in my work as an engineer. And I think government in general is ripe for improving inefficiencies and waste. And I think from that standpoint, having those process capabilities and being able to apply them, to a government setting is really beneficial to the taxpayer, to the citizen. Because you hear all the time about, dealing with the government is so painful. It takes so much time. It takes so much energy. It wastes so much of my time as well as just the time of the government official you're trying to work with. Well, if there's a way that we can take that process and streamline it, lean out those wastes and inefficiencies, we can make it better for the customer, which is the citizen, as well as for the government employee, and making those processes simpler and easier to use. It reduces the cost and reduces frustration. So to me, I think that skill set is very important to bring into a government setting and trying to develop it for the benefit of not only the government, but also for the citizen.
Right. Ohio was traditionally a swing state, but now it seems that the electorate is leaning towards your party, the Republicans. How do you see that? Is that really the case, or there is some misreading here?
So I think from the last two presidential elections in 2020 and 2016, Lane Diddy, Republican, and then also in the 2018 governor election and statewide office elections, those all went Republican as well. So you can take that time period for the last 6 years, from 2016 to 2022, and definitely see from a state perspective, the overall state of Ohio, that it has been trending more Republican and being, definitely more in that side of the partisan perspective when it comes to elections. So which is to me a good thing, because I'm Republican and that's a positive. So
sure.
Happy to see that.
Speaking of that being a good thing, I was reading Democratic Representative Tim Ryan and the way he seems to have shaken up the Republicans in the Senate race. I mean, he is reaching out in ways that your party perhaps did not anticipate. Do you think that's the template to follow on both sides?
I think so. I mean, that's at the end of the day, you have a certain section that is Democrat and a certain section that's Republican, and a big center of independents that haven't really made up their mind. And so I think folks try to really go for that center and trying to figure out what are the issues that are important to them in order to sway, them in the election to end up winning. And I think you're seeing that in the U.S. Senate race. You see it in most races, that even the race I'm in right now, I'm definitely going to need to get the independents to swing my way in order to be successful in November. And I think from that standpoint, it's not unusual to kind of see that kind of campaigning to kind of go for, issues that might be important to everyone, and that you could get some of that crossover vote in order to, win in November.
For instance, he has been quoted as saying that conservatives aren't wrong about everything and Democrats are not right about everything. If you were to flip it and say that conservatives are not right about everything and Democrats are not wrong about everything. Would someone of your moderate temperament be able to say that and still not get slammed for that?
It just, I mean, it kind of depends on the issue, right? I mean, if you're talking about an issue of gas prices, of inflation, I think most people would say, yeah, that's not good. It's not good. And no matter which side you're on, you want to make sure that you're helping families, be able to, afford groceries, afford, gas. So from that perspective, that's an issue that kind of resonates with people and they can't understand. Now, of course, I feel like our side, Republicans, have solutions that the other side have not embraced in addressing some of that, especially from the standpoint of trying to get more, production of gas supplies here in America and be able to kind of reduce that burden on the supply and demand curve, making sure that we have enough gas so we can lower the price. Whereas I think the Democratic side is being, more toward of shutting down pipelines and making it more difficult for domestic production, and therefore the prices are going up. But I do see some issues where you can be, in that middle, so to speak, of this is very important, and you can cross over and be able to explain to Democrats and Republicans, hey, this is just common sense. This is just a common sense issue right here that we need to make sure that potholes in roads, no one likes potholes in roads. Well, let's fill them. Let's fill them. Let's get it done. I always say, though, as a Republican, I can do it more efficiently and cost effective than potentially a Democrat. But that's just tongue in cheek, joking a little bit. But at the end of the day, everybody cares about potholes because their car is driving on the street, hits a pothole and messes up their tire, messes up their alignment. It's frustrating because that's why you're paying your taxes. Paying your taxes to make sure that your roads are nice, and that when you call for 911 or for a police officer or an ambulance, that they show up. You kind of expect those basic services when you're paying your taxes.
Right.
And to me, I think that resonates with people.
Your District 28 covers 12 communities.
Yes.
What are the biggest challenges in these communities now?
Well, I think the economy is the biggest one I hear the most when I'm talking to constituents. And we are in the northeast part of Hamilton County. So it stretches from Forest Park in the west all the way over to Madeira in the southeast. And, all the folks that I've been meeting with and discussing are concerned about the gas prices, are concerned about the inflation that they're feeling when they go to the grocery store. And that now it's so much more expensive to get just food for their families. And then the food shortages, that you go in and it depends on the week. You might not have, paper products one week. You might not have, dairy products the other week. And I mean, it just kind of varies depending on the supply chain issues of what there's shortages of. And it's the weirdest things, one time I could go in there, I couldn't find cream cheese anywhere. And it's just, kind of like, why now? Why we have a shortage on cream cheese? Or, it's just been kind of interesting to see. And so I think people are really feeling those issues of the pocketbook and how it's affecting their families' budgets. On top of that, you have other issues such as community safety, public safety. Crime has been increasing, which kind of goes hand in hand with the economy. When you see the economy start going bad, you unfortunately see crime increasing. So for that perspective, people are definitely getting more worried about the increase of crime. Talking to seniors, I'm talking to seniors who are like, I don't want to go out. I'm afraid to go out and get robbed and something happen. So to me, that's disturbing because it's, everyone should live in a community that's safe. And so from that perspective, that's another issue that people are bringing up of, hey, we're seeing this increase in crime. People aren't supporting the police. People aren't, helping put these criminals behind bars. And to me, that's something that's very important that I want to push when I'm at state legislature, is to make sure that we are supporting our police. We're funding and we're giving them the resources necessary to protect our communities, to make sure that, folks feel safe when they go outside and they don't have issues. So to me, that's another one that's very important. And then the third one that I hear a lot about is education, and especially in regards to what's being taught in schools. and parent involvement in schools. And to me, you've seen that a lot with the, all the school board meetings that have been taking place over the last couple of years. And I think if anything out of the COVID pandemic, anything that could potentially be positive about that experience has been that parents actually got to see what their child was learning in school, because their child was home during the pandemic, during the shutdown. They were seeing the classes, they were seeing the homework, they were trying to, help out. And they're like, what's going on? What are they learning? What are they being taught? And so to me, I think it really opened up a lot of parents' eyes. And I always believe the first and most important educator of any child is their parent. The parent is primary in making sure that their child gets the education necessary to be successful. So during that pandemic and the shutdown, parents all of a sudden said, wow, what is going on here with education? And so for me, that is something I think is very important, that we give the tools and resources out there so parents can feel empowered that they're part of the process of making sure their child is getting the best education possible so that they can be successful in life. So those are issues that I've been hearing.
Right.
Sorry.
You say you stand for more freedom, less government, more jobs, lower taxes, support for police, no indoctrination, and safer communities. Now, This is a classic Republican approach, but your party generally is no longer that, going by the way it has been so completely hijacked by Donald Trump. He's still litigating or talking about 2020. How do you, as a reasonable voice, navigate through this absurdity that's being inflicted on your party?
Well, I think you just, to me, you talk about the issues, not about the personalities. And in politics, there's a lot of personalities that you see out there. And unfortunately, that we shouldn't be focused on the personalities, but rather on the issues that people are feeling every day. And to me, that's where I think where my role in this and in campaigning and being able to talk to constituents is saying, what are the issues that you're most concerned about and worried about for your family, for your business, for your community? That we can't be talking about the personalities, because that's just a sideshow. It truly is just something that is not beneficial to trying to improve the communities and lives of the families and the businesses that are in our communities to get better. And to me, I think we just got to focus on that. And that's where I'm going to go. That's where I'm going to go. The conversation is saying we got to focus on policies. We got to focus on, what are the issues that are affecting everyday people, and how do we make sure that they're going to be solved? I'm an engineer, so I like solving problems. I solve problems for a living. So to me, it's something I get excited about, because it's like, wow, let's go dig into this. Let's really look at it, try to make sure that we set up a process that's going to be effective, that's going to solve the problem, or at least make it better, and do it in a cost-effective way so it keeps more money in the citizens' pocket. So, but yeah, it can be, definitely frustrating at time when the personalities come in and you can't talk about the policies and the issues that really need to be addressed, because that's where people are hurting.
Policy talk is dismissed with so much contempt. People don't look at policy as anything serious, when the reality is that it goes to the very heart of daily lives. Why is it that, it's predominantly on the Republican side, but on the Democratic side too, policy is something people scoff at, because problem solving also flows from policy. How do you, as someone who, you mentioned your engineering background, especially aeronautical engineering, someone who is almost by training focused on problem solving, using policy as a tool, how do you get around this current contempt that one encounters?
So I think outcomes is the key there. That I think when people talk, their eyes glaze over when they hear the word policy, because it sounds very stuffy and like a white paper or some academic type of thing. And in reality, it's about outcomes. That how do we want to make sure that we're going to improve the lives of our citizens within these communities? What are the outcomes that are going to happen because of these policies of reducing taxes.
Well, I think it's
The police, of making sure. Are you there? Sorry, I lost you for a second there. I had are you still?
no, it broke up in between. You were talking about outcomes and policies.
Yeah. So to me, that's where you connect with people to say, well, here's the key outcomes that we want to achieve. The policy sometimes might make their eyes glaze over and sound
Right.
boring, but I think if you give them the outcomes, they'll be more receptive to saying, hey, I'm going to deliver. I'm going to go up there. I'm going to drive. Doing these things in order to provide these outcomes that are going to make our lives better within the district I'm representing.
Right. You have a master's in public policy from Harvard, the John F. Kennedy School. Do you worry that a lot of them might see you as too qualified or even elitist? Because I suppose college education is once again scoffed at in certain quarters of the Republican Party, and you seem to be at the top of that game in terms of your education. So how do you reconcile the way the base looks at it and the way you look at it?
Yeah, from a standpoint, I think it's, to me, something that I think can help in relating of as an engineer, when I want to learn about do something to make it better, I have to learn about it. I have to study it. I got to be able. So if I'm given a problem in engineering, I can't just automatically say, oh, this is it. I got to study it. I got to be able to understand and get behind it. So from my perspective, with my Harvard degree, I wanted to do that with government, right? I really wanted to understand, how things are set up and how do we make sure that, we can fix things. So from that standpoint, I think I explained to folks, I went there and, was able to kind of learn, improve my skill set so I can go out and become a better public servant and be able to address the issues that we see that are wrong with government. And not too many people have brought it up to me, to be honest. It's something that, I think for me, from a standpoint, it was an educational journey of trying to be able to, understand those policies and what we can get out of them to make better outcomes for our communities. And I think people appreciate that, because some folks just jump in and just say, well, I can solve it and do this. And that's great if they can, but sometimes they end up causing a bigger mess and it doesn't get better. And so I think being able to sit back and say, well, actually, I have training, I've actually studied, I've actually, done work in my public service already as a Cincinnati City Councilman, as a county commissioner, that I can bring those experiences and, be able to address issues and fix problems that we have in our community.
Just last couple of things.
Okay.
In 1995, you and Mrs. Monzel taught in Minsk, Belarus.
Yep.
How did that shape? I mean, it was a while ago, but I'm sure what you did there has stayed with you as an experience. How did that shape your approach to what you seek to do in Ohio?
So it was a really great experience, and it's actually my brother had a friend whose father was doing work over in Minsk, volunteer work at a university over there, and he set us up to go over for a semester to help teach about American culture and to also help out with an organization called Children of Chernobyl. So the Chernobyl nuclear power plant was actually in Ukraine,
Right.
but that day with the accident, the wind was blowing north. So a lot of the radiation was dumped into the country of Belarus. And so they have a lot of cancers and a lot of issues from that incident. And that was in 1986 timeframe, late 80s. And we were there, basically 9 years later, and it was still very effective of those children's health. So being able to kind of work with those teams and try to come up with ways for them to get money in order to help these children get respite over in Canada or America, to get medicines and vitamins in order to help with their, overcoming that radiation. So that opportunity to go over there was, one, great. I believe everybody should live abroad, especially Americans, so they can understand the freedoms and the opportunities that we have in America compared to some other countries. And living in Belarus, it was still very much a Soviet, it still is today, a very Soviet Union mentality and government. In fact, the president today had just came in power right after we got there, and he's been in power since then.
Yeah.
And it's and in the Belarusian people are just incredible people. But just to see that system of government and to see how their society ran was just eye-opening for me and my wife, just to understand like a central controlled government and how it really affects people's daily lives. I mean, just one interesting story. We were getting, when we arrived, we were getting a tour of the city, and we were in a city plaza, and I see this digital kind of display. And I said, oh, is that the time, the clock, or temperature? Sometimes you see time and temperature on display outside at a public space. And he's like, no, that's a Geiger counter. I said, a Geiger counter? So that's counting the radiation that's in the air. And he's like, that's correct. I'm like, well, what number should I see that would say, go away, get covered? And he's like, it doesn't matter. It's broken. So to me, that was just spoke volumes of that central government that really is not run effectively and efficiently, that here we have something that was supposed to be beneficial for citizens, didn't even work.
Right.
And to me, I think just having that experience and being over there really helped, inform my worldview of what we have so blessed to have in America, of our freedoms and, the capability of our private sector and being able to, provide technology and advancements that have helped out greatly our citizens, where that was not happening over in Minsk, Belarus. So, which is a detriment to the great people of that country. I mean, there's very good people, but their government has definitely not helped the situation.
And finally, the elephant in the room. I have to ask you about the January 6th hearings. Objectively, they have been stunning in what they have revealed and exposed. And interestingly, most of those who have exposed what went on are Republican-leaning people. And they have considered that their national duty to come out and say what they have said. How do you, from a state like Ohio, look at the January 6th hearings and its long-term impact on America's democracy?
Well, I think from a standpoint, and I've seen very a few moments of them, just some captures in newsreels. But from a standpoint, I think transparency in government is important. That we need to make sure that we have a full transparency of what's going on, no matter what level, no matter who's doing it, Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. I think that's important, that we have that. So I think that's a good thing, to be able to, have a government that's open and being able to address issues and look into, what happened and what's going on. So for me, I think that process is important. It's important that we have that here in America, no matter, again, what the issue is. I think from a standpoint for any government employee that was around that day and, within what took place on January 6th, I think we all think that, was not good what took place, and was not a good day for our country. And being able to try to say, well, how can we learn from that? How can we improve from that? To me, that's part of being this Six Sigma Master Black Belt of continuous improvement. How do we learn from things that have taken place and be able to improve? And I think this is an opportunity for our country to learn from that day and to be able to say, hey, what should have happened? There's a lot of different things that went wrong on both sides, right? That we should be able to say, what could we have done better, and be able to learn from that to improve our country. So to me, transparency is awesome. It's most important to have in government. And two, is to learn from things to be able to improve ourselves as a country is I think an outcome that we need to make sure that we take away from all this.
On that note, Mr. Monzel, I want to thank you for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you, and we'll tell you when it runs. It runs pretty quickly, so we'll let you know the links, etc.
Well, thank you very much for the time today. I really appreciate it. And please remember to vote Chris Monzel for state representative in District 28 in Ohio, and to vote August 2nd in the primary, and then again on November 8th. So I appreciate it.
And all the best to you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.